I want to present this guy here. We asked Greg. Greg has been fishing with the Dubuque Bass Club since the beginning. Greg, and I'll let him tell his story. I don't need to tell his story, but good friend of mine, Greg Vance, professional bass fisherman. We've got him here today to talk to you guys about, if you guys want to kind of take this to the next level, continue fishing, this is a guy to tell you how to get there. So we're really happy to have Greg here all the way from Delhi, Iowa. So without further ado, Greg, the floor is yours, buddy.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Woo! But like I said, if you guys don't know me, my name's Greg Vance. From here, Dubuque. Went to Wahlert High School. Went to Loras College. Got my degree in marketing. And been bass fishing my whole life. Actually fishing, really. And then I have a place. My parents had a place at Lake Delhi, which is about 45 miles west of here. In 2010, we had a major flood and basically completely ruined our whole lake. Our dam breached, and we didn't have a lake for 6 years. So from 2010, I lived, not too far from the river. So Dad and I were, wanting to fish. So we started fishing the river a bit, and that's when Dubuque Bass Club started coming around, and I started fishing tournaments in 2010. And when I started fishing tournaments, my grandpa bought me a fishing trip from a guy named Terry Fitzpatrick. If you know him, he's the last Iowa Bassmaster Classic qualifier before I was. So it was really cool for me, a young guy like you guys, fishing with a professional who's been to the Classic, been to the big stage. So he had asked me to fish on his team as a non-boater back in 2010. So I started fishing as a non-boater, fishing out of the back of the boat, learning how to fish, learning some areas and how to look at fish, how to find areas that would hold fish and what to do to catch them. So once I started doing that, I started getting better and better, but it took me a while to really get the hold of fishing, and I did a lot of practice, I did a lot of research, I did everything I could to be as best as I could at fishing. So when I started wanting to become a boater, which was in 2015, I was a boater. And I qualified through the Bassmaster Classic through the Bass Nation, Iowa Bass Nation. There was 4 different tournaments. So there would be a spring and a fall state tournament for Iowa. So it was an Iowa State tournament. Ended up doing really well in that. Qualifying for a divisional, which they take the top 12 guys in that. And I went to a regional, which was on Lake Vermilion, Minnesota. And you had to win your state. So I beat all 12 of those, or 11 of those guys to make it to the next level. And then you went to a national tournament in Louisiana on the Ouachita River. And I went down there, and you had to be your top qualifier for your division. So I was in the Northern Division. So that was Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, North Dakota, South Dakota. I can start naming them off, but I had to beat all those guys. So I ended up doing that, did really well. And that's what qualified for the Bassmaster Classic. And that's what really kind of set my professional fishing career as far as pursuing it as a full-time job. So once I started doing that, I started fishing the Bassmaster Opens, and that's what I'm still fishing today. I still fish the Bassmaster Elite or Bassmaster Opens and the Bass Nation. But I love the fishing Dubuque Bass Club because this is kind of where I learned how to fish, and I learned a lot from these guys. I've known Jeremy and Chris and Chad and all these guys for a long time. And, it's always great to see them. And it's always good to come back and fish your roots. You got to start somewhere. And where I started was Dubuque Bass Club. And then I moved up to the Bass Nation, and now I'm fishing the Opens. With that being said, I want you guys to start thinking about some questions that you might have for me. And, anything from fishing or outside of fishing, whatever it is. But what I want to talk about a little bit is what makes a guy a good fisherman, and how can you be successful in fishing? And to me, it's all about, one is passion, and how much passion do you have for the sport, and how willing are you to be as good as you possibly can be. You're not going to learn everything in fishing. It's not going to happen. You're not going to know that this bass sleeps on this dock at this time of day. It's never going to happen. You're never going to know that as far as a human to a fish. But you can determine fish patterns, what they feed on, how they move, how a river system changes the way they, go from one area to another. Same thing with lakes and where do they live, and the spawn and all sorts of different variations when it comes to fishing. So that's what I like to do. Is I try to be the best I can by being passionate about it. I try to get on the water as much as I possibly can, and I do a lot of research. You know, at night I go online, I watch YouTube videos all the time, from either guys that, you know, Brandon Polinick, Gerald Swindle, Kevin Van Dam, all those guys. They put out great information. I watch those, I read about them in Bassmaster magazine. I would highly suggest, you know, subscribing to that as well. That they'll teach you a lot of stuff about fishing and how to find fish and what to do to catch them. But that's what I do is, you know, find a lot of different ways inside that information, and I also do a lot of Google Earth research. You know, we have really good technology today. You guys got your iPhones, your iPads, and the internet. You go online and you can see a topographical map of where you're going to be fishing, and you can find areas within the body of water you're fishing that will show you potentially where a fish is going to live. You know, let's say you're fishing the Mississippi River and you want to look for lily pads. Well, you can find a lily pad field or a lake that maybe someone else might have not have found by using Google Earth instead of just going out in the river, because it might take you an entire year to find a lake when you can go on Google Earth and in 5 minutes you might be able to find something that somebody else might not have found. So use your resources and ask questions. You know, other people that, you know, fish all the time, you know, ask them how are they good at fishing, or ask them to teach you a few things. You know, practice casting at home. I know it sounds weird, but I'd always, in my living room or in my garage and outside, I'd use my baitcaster when I was learning how to throw a baitcaster. I'd put paper plates out in the yard and I'd flip to them all the time just to get good at, you know, being accurate with your casting. And that's going to help you catch more fish, because sometimes maybe you're fishing down a bank someone already had casted or had fished, but you can cast to certain spots where maybe somebody else might not have casted to, which is going to allow you to be a little bit better on top of your game. So with that, you guys have any specific questions? I want you guys to really open your minds and figure out if there's anything that you really are concerned about or want to know or anything like that. I'm here to answer any questions you guys have. So,
if you had 2 hours to fish this coming Thursday in Pool 12, where would you start at?
I hate Pool 12, so I'm going to go up to 11 every time. I grew up fishing 11. I really don't know this pool that well. I know some areas, but obviously you got to look at your low water. It's hot. You got to find current. Current is a big deal. Whether you're going to target smallmouth, target largemouth, maybe you're going to target both of them. Find areas where they're going to be, you know, in that current, you know, deeper water. They're not going to be in slack water. I mean, you might find some, but I would focus on current. I would focus on clean water, which should be clean with the water being so low. Should be a lot of clean water. And vegetation.
Makes those fish want to go to current right now? Why would they go to current over slack water?
They go to current because slack water is going to be a lot hotter, and there's not going to be as much oxygen in the water. So current allows them to, one, follow the bait fish, because the bait fish are also in current. Two, it's going to be a lot cooler. It's probably 90 degrees in a backwater pocket where there's no current versus maybe 80 or 75 degrees in current. So, you know, that's things I look for when I'm fishing on the river. And then, you know, I know a lot of history too, so there's areas that I've always caught fish in I like to check out. But, you know, fishing new water too, you know, finding spots that you might not fish all the time will help you as well. Don't always go to the same spots over and over. Try to find new stuff. Try to find something that somebody else may not have found. So, anybody else?
Talk to them about the difference between like a guy in the Dubuque Bass Club fishing the Dubuque Bass Club versus people that you've met at the AAA and professional level through your experiences.
Well, obviously, it comes down to, you know, people have day jobs as well. So everybody can't be a professional fisherman. But the guys that are professional fishermen have been doing it their whole life. They have a real passion for it, and they put a lot of time on the water, and therefore they have had success in tournaments. They have made a name for themselves and got sponsorship dollars, and they can pursue their dreams as far as professional fishing and doing it as a full-time gig. I don't do it full-time. I wish I could, and that's my goal someday, to do it full-time. And it might take me 20 years to do it, but my goal is to fish professionally full-time and not have a second job. But it's going to take time. You don't just jump into fishing and all of a sudden be good at it. There's a little luck involved, don't get me wrong, but you have to go out and put your work in. You gotta do your research, like I said, spend a lot of time on the water, ask questions, and use your mind and use your resources that you have to do the best you can and to learn as much as you can about fishing, and you'll get there someday. What's up, buddy?
How do you balance like having a second job and then also trying to do that? Like, how do you? Fishing's pretty expensive.
Yep. That's a good question. I mean, I've been fortunate in my life. My parents have helped me out a lot, but I've also worked my butt off to get to where I'm at. So right now I run a marina back in Delhi, and it is hard. You got to do your day job, and you also got to want to do fishing as well. You got to balance that out. But when you do get to fish, use the most out of it. Some guys will go out and they'll fish an hour or two a day. I like to go out and I'll fish 12 to 14 hours a day from dark to dark. Just because, one, I love to do it, but two, I need to spend as much time on the water and to figure out what are the fish doing at this particular time. How can I make the most out of my time to find fish that are, one, biting, and what kind of pattern can I find? It is tough to do, but it can be done. A lot of guys that do fish Elite Series, they do own businesses. Perfect example, what's his name? Chad Pipkins on the Bassmaster Elite Series. I don't know if you guys follow them, but he owns a painting business, so he paints in the off season. So he makes money doing that. He's got a lot of sponsorship dollars, but he also paints in the off season. Brandon Polinick, he gets paid a lot through all his videos on Facebook. I mean, he's also working. That's another job in itself. Editing. He's got guys that help him edit videos. He does a lot of the video screening and all that himself. But there's a lot of guys that fish full time, but they also have other jobs. So, but it can be done, no doubt. Anybody else?
If I were to fish on pool 11, where's your favorite spot?
My favorite spot.
With big fish.
Zollycoffers.
I wrote that down.
Yeah.
In the winter, right?
In the winter. In the springtime. Late fall. Anybody else have any questions? I've always ran Abu Garcia. They gave me a little deal when I made the Classic, and I was using them before then, and I've been with them since. So I love Abu Garcia. I think there's a lot of great reel companies out there. I think Shimano's great. I think Daiwa's good. I think Quantum's got a good reel. But personally, I like Abu Garcia. It's what I've been using since I started, and I'm going to stick with them. I know you had another question.
What's your top three favorite ways fish or something?
My favorite way, I'm a shallow water guy, so I grew up fishing the river. All these guys fish the river, so we're shallow water fishermen. I go to a deep lake and I'm like, I don't know what to do half the time. So that's another thing too when you're fishing is stick to what you're good at. We grew up fishing the river. It's a lot of shallow water. Flipping, frogging, throwing a swim jig, throwing a square bill. That's really basic on the river. So that's what I'm good at. That's what I like to do. That's what I'm confident with. Having confidence in fishing is also very important. So you got to know what's your favorite bait. Throw it. If it's your favorite bait, throw it all the time. Everybody's got 8,000 different baits out there, but if you got one that you have confidence in, you're going to catch more fish because you have confidence in that bait than versus throw on a new one that you're just going to try for the day. Don't get me wrong, you should try a bunch of different baits, but if it comes down to it, you got a specific bait you're very passionate about or you really like to throw it. Use your confidence and you're going to catch more fish, guaranteed. So I'm a shallow water guy, 100%. Go ahead.
What's your favorite bait?
My favorite bait? Soft plastic, hard bait. Does it matter? I like a jig. I'm a flipping jig. I like a Menace Grub, Strike King Menace Grub trailer on a flipping jig. You can swim it, you can flip it, you can throw it as a topwater bait. You can do whatever you want with the jig. I'm a big jig guy.
I've heard from a few people becoming a tournament angler. Once you get your first win, your first big W, they come easier, just confidence-wise. You think there's any truth to that?
Yeah, I would say there's truth to that. So when I made the Classic back in 16, my 2015 season through my 2017 season, in my eyes, I was really, really good. Like I I did really well in tournaments. I was always qualifying for stuff. And then I had a couple years where I did okay, but I wasn't doing great, and I wasn't meeting my expectations as a professional fisherman. So I started, especially this past winter, I really looked at the way I was fishing and why I wasn't doing as good. And I just started going back to what I was good at. I was trying stuff that I wasn't good at. And yes, you have to get good at what you're not good at, but I was going back to what am I good at, and that's shallow water fishing and going with my instincts, go with my gut feeling. Why, I'm going to go to this spot because I have confidence in it. I'm going to go do this technique because I have confidence in it. So I started, even this year, I won the 10K this year. Stoked about it. I finished 26th in my first open, got a good check, and those are the only 2 big tournaments I've fished this year, and I've done well. So my confidence right now is up here versus the last couple years has probably been down here. I feel like I should be doing a lot better in tournaments the last couple years, but now I'm starting to increase. So yeah, I would definitely say there's once you get confidence and once you win something, you want to win again so bad that you're going to do what you can to make that happen. And that's what, with the Classic, I felt like, maybe sometimes I was pushing myself a little too hard, or I was expecting too much, meaning I qualified, I need to get there again, but when I look at it, it's so hard to qualify for it. To do it again, you got to really be on top of your game in order to do it. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on getting back to my level to where I felt like I was a couple years ago, and I think I'm starting to climb that hill. So go ahead.
What kind of line do you use for like your different things you throw?
I love fluorocarbon. I throw all Seagar fluorocarbon. When I'm flipping, I throw 20-pound Seagar. When I'm throwing a crankbait, a square bill, I throw 15-pound Seagar. When I'm throwing a swim jig, though, I'll throw 50-pound braid. And I'll throw braid on 2 different baits, a swim jig and a frog. A topwater bait that's, you're working your spook or a pop or anything, I throw 20-pound mono, Seagar mono. So there's a lot of different variations, a lot of different baits, and a lot of different lines to use. So, if I'm throwing a jig on docks or any heavy cover, I'm definitely going 20-pound. If I'm fishing down south in Texas, 25-pound. I get up, there's bigger fish, heavy cover. So the only 2 times I fish braid is on a swim jig and on a frog. Everything else is fluorocarbon, and the one time I'll use mono is on a topwater bait.
What's your favorite season?
Oh man, spring or fall. I do like summer fishing, but spring or fall, fish are feeding up going into winter for fall fishing. You catch a lot of them, but springtime you're going to catch a lot of big ones. So spring or fall is my favorite time to go. But it also depends on where you go. I go down south here in September, and it's terrible. Fishing's horrible down there. But you go there in February when we have ice here, and it's really good. So it depends on where you're at too in the region of the country. So.
How old are you?
I'm 26. Go ahead.
So when you got your sponsors, did they come to you, or did you have to go with?
About half and half. I had several people come to me. My rod company, Hawkeye Rods and Team Rain Shadow, they came to me. Jeremy was a sponsor of mine for a while. Especially he helped me get with Mercury as well. So that's one of them. But when you're not Kevin Van Dam, you have to prove yourself that you can represent them companies to the best you can. So I do go to them, and I have a resume. I've got a list of everything, how I can help. I've met with several companies. I've really good friends with the CEO of Casey's General Stores, the former CEO. He retired, but I've spent nights at his house, and I've taken him out fishing several times. I've got a lot of my sponsors I'm friends with. So once you develop relationships with people, and they're willing to support you and you support them, it works out really good. So.
How many days a year are you on the road?
Well, if I'm in a normal season without Corona, I was fishing about 200 days a year.
So what would that look like going into like an open? So your the
Yep.
last couple of years, the opens were your big tournaments.
Yep.
Those were all over the country. Talk maybe about like how that trip looks for
Yep.
you.
So I always give myself minimum of a week to practice, especially on a body of water I've never been to. So I'll do my research all year long. From the time I find out the tournament I'm fishing or the body of water, I'm going to start doing research from that point on till up to the time I leave. I always give myself a day, if not further, to travel to get down there, and I always give myself at least a week to 10 days to pre-fish to learn the body of water as best I can, to learn a pattern or a technique that maybe is going to help me do well in the tournament. So, and then I'll fish my tournament. So it's a 3-day tournament if you qualify for the last day. So it'd be 2 days for sure, guaranteed, and then a third day if you do well. And then I'll travel back, and then I'll start preparing for my next one. I was fishing between 20 and 25 tournaments a year, but one with the coronavirus this year, our schedule got really messed up, and then with me running a marina, it's really slowed down my fishing. But I do get to fish a decent amount yet. So.
What about your wife?
She's back there. She supports me 100%. So, but she's sometimes not so happy when I'm gone. But
We don't see her name on that jersey at all, Craig.
yeah,
I don't contribute enough.
Should be on the jersey.
It is on the jersey, the last name.
yeah, the
Can you
last
talk-
name. There you go.
Can you talk about that pre-fishing? So you're there for a
Yep.
week. So are
Yep.
you fishing different areas every day, or like huge bodies of water? Or do you pick a section and just say, I'm gonna learn this section? How do you,
Yep.
do you stick fish? Do you not stick fish? How do you do it?
So when I start pre-fishing, obviously through my research, I'm going to go to the areas that I feel like I found on Google Earth or what I read in articles or whatnot, and I'm going to go to fish those areas. If that's not panning out for the first couple days, I completely scrap it, and I'm going to go to a section of the lake that I feel like maybe the fish are, and why the fish are there. Well, maybe there's certain cover that I believe that the fish are there. Maybe I do my research, and a lot of the tournaments results have been won in this area of the lake, so I kind of focus my, on that area of the lake. But I will find areas, and once I find a pattern, say I'm catching them on 4 foot of water on rocks, or 4 foot of water on docks, or I'm fishing a grass eel edge or something like that, I'm going to start finding very similar areas to that, and I'm going to try to duplicate that pattern so I can find more fish. Once I find them, I like to catch 1 or 2 keepers or more to realize that maybe there's a school of fish here, or this is an area that can produce a lot for me in the tournament. So I won't stick too many. I don't like to do that, especially on a 3-day tournament. There's a lot of fish that you need to catch in a 3-day tournament, and you gotta make sure you're not burning them up. So, but you also have to make sure that your areas will produce enough fish for you for a 3-day tournament. So I like to know how many are there. What colors do I use? In dirty water, I like black and blues or like a dark purple because it stands out a lot better in the water. But if I'm fishing cleaner water, your browns and your green pumpkins. I'm a real natural color guy. I like to fish, your whites, your green pumpkins, your browns, your blacks, and black and blues. I don't like to get all crazy with, your pinks and your reds and all that. I stick to what I think is the natural colors and what does well for me. So.
No fire craw jackhammer for you?
Nope, not a fire crawl jackhammer.
You keep a journal? Where you going?
I used to. I haven't for a while. I should probably get back to doing it. But yeah, that would be something to really think about is, I caught fish doing this at this time of day, the water temperature is this, the water level is that. I do keep notes in my Lowrance unit. So every time I catch a fish, I will mark it or an area, and I will put notes in that. So water temperature this, the river level is at this or this. I don't necessarily have a journal, but I do keep a lot of stuff in my Lowrance units. So.
I once got a HDS 12 from Greg, and between here and La Crosse, I think there was about 1,600 waypoints marked.
Yep, that would be me.
There's that many fish in the river.
And most of them are junk and don't work anymore, the waypoints, so we need
Yep.
maybe...
I should have deleted all of them.
So if you were getting ready for this tournament on Thursday, and you're
Yep.
one of these guys sitting out in the audience, what would be the first thing you would have tied on? What would you try first when you were going out there? If you just had 1 rod.
Well, it
then
depends.
maybe if you had 3 rods
Yep.
that you were going to use.
Well, it depends on what structure you're going to start fishing or what
You
area
don't
you're
know
going
where
to
your
fish.
motor's going to take you.
Yep, you don't know where your boat. Well, I would have a swim jig tied on. I would have a flipping bait, so whether it's a soft plastic or a jig, and I would have a frog tied on. Those would be my 3 baits for sure. Go ahead, buddy. What's that?
What's your PB?
Biggest bass, 8.3. Largemouth of Lake Conroe. Go ahead. The coolest lake? Oh man. there's a lot of cool lakes, but Toledo Bend down in Texas was probably one of my favorite lakes. I do like to go to Canada and fish for smallies, so you know, kind of depends. There's a lot of cool places out there. The river is an awesome place. You start, especially up in La Crosse or Lansing. It's my favorite place to fish. I love it up there. Go
So
ahead.
you went to school for marketing.
Mhm.
How important is your education with what you're doing? I
It's
think most people really tie fishing as a profession.
Yep.
As you need a lot of education. Well, research and stuff you're doing.
Yep.
It sounds like you use a lot of that.
Yeah, so you know, there's kind of two sides to it. A lot of the professionals say, well, you don't need an education if you just have the passion for it and you just have the drive. Well, what happens if you're not going to be a professional fisherman? You know, you need to have a backup plan. That was my goal. Is I went to school. I hated it. I'll be honest with you. Heather helped me get through a lot of it, to be honest. But it is important because you have to learn how to speak in front of people. I'm not saying I'm good at it by any means, but you have to learn that because if you're going to get sponsors and they're going to want to pay you to fish, you have to be able to present in front of them. You also have to present in front of a group of people. That's big. You also have to know how am I going to help a company as far as sponsorship. So what am I going to do as far as that goes? So yeah, marketing is also on your resume to show that to a sponsor. Unless you're independently wealthy, you can't fish professionally. I mean, it's expensive, so you have to have a backing in order to do that. And you know, I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of people that help me out in the past couple years, and I can do it. I'm not even at the Elite Series level, but once I get there, obviously I'm gonna have to do some more. You know, get with my sponsors and say, hey, can we do more of this? But I have to help them because they're not just gonna give me money. It doesn't work that way. You have to do what you can do to help them. So yeah, education is a very big important deal. So.
If you guys are on Facebook, we're old school. Remember, we're not the new generation. Greg Vance Fishing is your Facebook page.
Yep,
Instagram, Greg Vance Fishing. So check that out, like it. You can see some of his catches on there, kind of see what he's up to. Follow Greg. Too Fat to Hunt Outdoors again. This will be loaded on there in a couple of days, I'm sure, so you get to review this again. If anybody has any questions, come on up. For me, for Greg. Otherwise, we thank everybody for making this possible, parents especially too. And we'll see you guys on Thursday. Thank you.